Hi, guys. This is The Deciding Factor. Welcome to another show. I am John.
And I'm Alton.
And we have Barbara joining us yet again. And today we have another guest to join us and walk us through this topic. And that topic is, does everyone have a purpose in life? We will actually dive into it in a few different aspects. One of them which being, what are you going to do for a living with your job? Are you at a dead-end job? Do you want to get out? Do you want to move on? Is there something better? That's what we'll discuss today's show. Make sure you click, like, and subscribe to our channel and our podcast. Also follow us on social media because just like earlier, you could have seen a live event on YouTube and you don't want to miss those. Guys, this is The Deciding Factor.
Everyday life issues broken down to help you build your own opinions on the issues that matter most. Coming to you from Austin, Texas, this is The Deciding Factor with your host, Alton Hill and John Herzog.
Guys, thanks again for joining us for another show. Like I said, we've got a special guest to join us today. And of course, our topic is, does everyone have a purpose in life? Well, he claims to know the answer, and his name is Mr. Bassey. I will let him describe his first name because I'm struggling with it, but we'll get to it in a second. But Mr. Bassey is a life strategist, consultant, motivational speaker, and a best-selling author of the book, Entering the Zone of Success, How Ordinary People Can Achieve Extraordinary Results Against All Odds. Mr. Bassey helps frustrated and overwhelmed employees in dead-end jobs understand how to turn their gifts into profit so they can have a freedom and financial security to care for the ones and things that matter the most to them. With careers spanning over 18 plus years in leadership, coaching, speaking, and mentoring, Bassey is working diligently to impact millions of lives with his message in the next 5 years. He is a committed student of personal development and the author of another book called In Pursuit of Purpose, Proven Steps to Achieve an Uncommon Life Now. Guys, welcome, Mr. Bassey. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm ready to add value to your audience, and I hope I can be a blessing to them.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Now, can you pronounce your first name for me since I butchered it earlier?
It's Mbiotidem. Mbiotidem.
There we go. So I must say, when I called you the first time to set up the show with you, you have a addictive personality and a very contagious laugh. So I expect us to laugh throughout this whole show. Just fair warning to all the other guys. So tell me, you have this thought that everyone obviously has a purpose, but how do we find this purpose? And what happens if somebody doesn't have a purpose? They're not here for much time or don't accomplish anything.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's such an honor. It doesn't matter if you're a person of faith or not a person of faith. One of the things you'll discover, there's something within you that's pulling you towards something bigger than you. What's that thing pulling you? That's your purpose pulling you. Michael Beckwith said something. He said, life will keep on pushing you until a larger vision pulls you. But that deep within us, everyone, I don't care who you are. You could be in the interior village in Africa, or you could be in Asia, or you could be in Canada. There's something in us that wants to be better. What's that thing? That's something. That stuff is your purpose. And once you discover that, man, life becomes amazing and fun. Everyone has that thing in them.
Oh, man. You know, I don't know if y'all struggle with this. I'll from time to time think of this question and I'm like, what on earth is my purpose? And then sometimes it really bugs me. I feel like I'm really meant for something huge. Do y'all have that same feeling?
I do,
Crickets.
for sure.
Crickets.
No, I
Yeah.
do. Yeah. Yeah. I think for me though, I have a belief that I'm meant to do something, right? And I think for me, that's not the struggle. It's am I on the right path to get there, right? Like, am I doing what I need to do? Am I learning? Am I around the right people? Which is why, honestly, I think a lot of this podcast addresses some of that, right? In other words, it's like, here's all these decisions that I have to take in my journey here on life. And so how can I make the best of that? But I think like sometimes you can just feel stuck, right? So Bassey, what do we do if like we're sitting here and we're like, I know I should be doing something. Should I be starting a podcast, or like, should I adopt this cat that ended up in my backyard, or like help us out?
Well, that's okay. I think you just asked me two questions, but I will start with the
Maybe.
first one. So the first one is, okay, how do I know I'm working on my purpose? That's what I teach my clients. I call it the purpose triangle. So number one, does it bring you fulfillment? Does it fulfill you? If it fulfills you, okay, number one, does it bring you fulfillment? Number two, does it excite you? Can you wake up and do this for every day for the next 365 days? Does it bring you excitement? And lastly, does it bring you joy? Do you smile when you're doing it? So that's the triangle of success. If these three things are yes, 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 you're writing your purpose. Jack Canfield said something. He says, do more of what brings you joy. So if it makes you smile, it makes you get up. The only reason you're doing this podcast is because on some level, it brings you joy. It brings you fulfillment. It excites you.
Barbara doesn't look too excited though.
No, this is just my face. I promise. I am like all into. Actually, I was going to say, I totally get the infectious laugh thing. You had me thinking, because I'm now going on a whole new ego trip, because I'm like, boom, that is my life. But I found myself thinking, I don't think I've ever had this feeling like I am supposed to do something great. I think I have always had the feeling that I don't want to get to a point in my life where I can look back and be like, well, that time was wasted. My overarching goal was always, I don't want any wasted time, right? So if I die tomorrow, I want there to be a feeling like I have done everything that I wanted to do. And to me, that's sort of converted into, I want to do everything that I just did today. And maybe that's what you're saying. It was like, I find joy in what I'm doing. These guys totally laughed at me yesterday when I said that I had made applesauce, and that was like my big triumph of the day. But you know what? Brought me joy. So there.
But what's the difference between like the joy she talked about with applesauce versus it being short-term lived and long-term lived, right? Because, from time to time, you might find something that you really enjoy doing, and you're like, oh, I want to do this the rest of my life. You hit a wall and you're done with it. You're backing away.
Well, again, think of it this way. When you get to the end of your life and you're looking back at your life, you want to make sure your life matters. And how are you going to determine if your life matters? Is you're going to say, well, did I do what I was called to do? So again, when you get to the end of your life, you're not going to say, did I make good applesauce?
What if that was my purpose, Bassey? I'm just saying, okay, but I'm actually seriously going to argue that one.
So think about this. Okay, right. That's good. That's a good question you just asked. There's a lady right now that I know she's in Amy Porterfield's course. She created a course to teach people how to make caramelized apples, and she made $60,000 in 1 weekend selling that course to people.
Wow.
Now that's what brings her joy.
Wow.
So, and that's the beauty of life, is we all have something different. I don't have to be John. I don't have to be Alton. I don't have to be Barb. And that's one of the big mistakes. I talk about 3 big mistakes people make. Number one, they want their purpose to be, they want to hear a voice from heaven. God, what's my purpose? I'm a Christian, so I grew up in church. I ran from one spiritual leader to the next, told me what I'm supposed to do. They didn't tell me nothing because they don't know. What I'm called to do is within me. Number two, the another big mistake people make is they want their purpose to be sexy. And That's what Barbara's talking about. Your purpose could be, I just love to make applesauce. That's good. Joy. For me, that's not me. For John, it's different. And then the third question, anyway, so number one, they want a sign from heaven. Number two, they want it to be sexy. And number three, they want it to be easy. The fact that you're called to do something doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It's going to push you. You're going to, you said something earlier, Alton. You said it's all about growth. So for you to work in the fullness of your purpose, you have to grow. John Maxwell talks about that tension, that elastic. You're going to have tension between where you are and where you want to be. Thank you.
Yeah. No, that's great. So let me challenge you a little bit and say, how much of us kind of developing that purpose might be like technical skills? Like, let's say that I want to be a wonderful podcaster, and there's probably like some technical things that I need to figure out. I may need to work on my radio voice, or actually shave or something. But then there's something, the other part of it about just having a good attitude and believing that I could be the next Joe Rogan, right? If I think I'm always going to be a crappy podcaster, even though I love it, it brings me joy. Like, how do you, let me formulate this in a coherent question for you this time. How do you look at that and balance the technical skills required versus the attitude and the mindset of it all? Does that make sense at all?
So what I'm hearing you say is, how do you know you could say I want to become a basketball player, but you don't really have the skill set? Is that the question?
Yes.
T.D. Jakes, Bishop T.D. Jakes, he said something. He said one day his son said, Dad, I'm going to become a videographer and photography. And he said, I'm excited about it. That's it. Go for it. That's amazing. And he says, Dad, what if I go down the road and discover that's not what I'm called to do? His dad says, that's good. While you're walking down that path, you will become clear what you need to be doing. And so the problem a lot of people had, and I had that for years, I sat down and was waiting for somehow something to happen, for my purpose to manifest. No, just take action. Just do something. As you're working in the direction and you're going and you're working and you're growing yourself and you're becoming a better person, you're going to the personal development and you're hiring a mentor and a coach. In the process of doing this, your purpose will become clearer and clearer. Again, remember, it's that triangle of purpose. Does it bring you fulfillment? Does it excite you? Does it bring you joy? Once it stops doing those things, go in the direction of what's bringing you fulfillment, joy, and excitement. So yes, and this is where, again, going back to what we're talking about, you cannot, the challenge, okay, this is a challenge people have, Alton. They're trying to navigate life by themselves. Someone rightly said, you cannot read the label when you're in the jar. This is where you need someone outside of you. You need a sensei, you need a coach that can help guide you.
We heard that just yesterday, didn't we?
Yeah, totally talked to that guy yesterday. You remind me of, I think wasn't it Elizabeth Elliot that would talk about doing the next thing? Like, she would have people come to her and be like, I want to be I want to be a missionary. This is, what do I have to do to be a missionary? And she said, well, what are you supposed to be doing right now? And she said, well, I'm a student. I've got midterms coming up. And she would say, then that is how you get to where you're wanting to go. You do the next thing, right? And so if the next thing in front of you is flipping hamburgers, then you do that heartily. Because is that kind of what you're saying? Like, it's going to take you to where you're going to end up.
That's right. Because what you don't want to do is sit down and do nothing. You don't want to do that. I remember working the jobs I used to work. When I go there, for me, I love order. I love to put things in order. So I'll go to my job, and the next time I say, okay, they don't have order, I'm going to write an SOP. This is what you're supposed to. I write everything we do on the job on paper. I go to the church, the same thing. The church is disorganized. I'm writing the SOP. This is how this event is going to be organized. I'm putting that. Now I'm able to write books. I did not start writing books. I've been writing for years. So just do the next best thing where you are.
Am I the only one that heard him say the SOB in church? Is that?
No, I heard that too, actually. I figured it stood for something.
No, he was saying SOP, standard operating procedures.
Oh, okay. Never mind. That whole conversation just made more sense to me.
Yeah. No, it's business lingo. Yeah, we don't get that out on the farm.
Standard operating procedures is basically the step-by-step of everything you're doing on the job or even in nonprofits, whatever it is.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So
caught up.
what happens if, let's say like me, right? I love the podcasting. I love the outdoors. So I'm already thinking about retirement and just fishing and hunting all the time. And then, of course, throughout my whole life, I always wanted to own and run a company to where I can help other people. I'm talking not just give them a job, but like give them a career and a life that is not like any other. Meaning, I don't care about the bottom dollar making, say, 60% profit or anything like that. As long as I'm making okay money to live off of and have fun doing what I want to do, I'm okay. Why can't I pay the average Joe $20, $25 an hour? You know, I want to do something extraordinary like that. However, I've got the other two things that I'd like to do. So what do you say to someone like me who doesn't know what my purpose is? How do you start?
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is basically, how do you find what you're called to do, right? One of the things I do in my book, I have 18 questions to help you pinpoint that one thing. And so one of the questions is, what irritates you? What irritates you is different from what irritates me. For me, when I get into a place, I cannot stand disorder. I hate it. I can't stand mess. And so somebody's going to walk into a room and hear the sound system and say, oh my God, the sound is off. And he's just irritated. So if you're in that situation, maybe you're called to be a sound engineer, but just explore that area. Or maybe you're there like, you're like, man, you enter building a house and you're like, wow, I think we need a flower over there. We need to put a picture right here. Maybe you're called to be an interior designer. Explore. Again, the whole idea of finding your purpose when you're not sure what it's supposed to be is you have to explore. And that's what, for me, for years, that was the challenge I had. I was running from one spiritual leader to the next, saying, please tell me, what's God saying? What does God want me to do? Because I wanted a clear, definite answer. I was not getting it. So again, to answer your question, you have to be willing to explore, answer the questions. I have 18 questions, and anyone that gets the book, you can go and you can get the book, the 18 questions to help you find out what that thing is.
Yeah, because I mean, if you start talking about things that really agitate me, then I mean, we're getting into politics now. Now you're telling me to run for president. I mean, unfortunately, I don't think I have what it takes to run for president because people don't want to listen to me that much.
You may be surprised.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think listening to the.
Oh, so I didn't mean to cut you off, Barbara.
No, I was going to make a totally inappropriate crack about whether or not we listen to the president. So go ahead, continue.
All right. So catastrophe averted. No. One of the things that I guess one of the little processes that I went through, because I worked a 9-to-5 for many years, like a whole career. And I was always thinking, business isn't for me. I have no idea what I'm doing. And hopefully my clients aren't listening, but maybe it's still the case. However, I value freedom so much. I just couldn't stay with the boss. So I knew when you talk about irritations, like someone telling me what to do, I'm out. I'm allergic to that. I'm working on it, handling that better. But one of the exercises that I did was they said, this is going to be tough, but go to your 5 closest friends and ask them, say, okay, guys, I need your honest opinion. What does Alton do better than anyone else? What am I really good at better than other people? And honestly, the answer surprised me because I was so close to it that like my skill sets. I didn't realize that they were actually skill sets because I'm like, everybody can do that. And my friends were looking at me like, no, not everybody's that weird, man. That's just you. So that might be something else that you can do if you're wondering, which path. It's just ask the people close to you, but have some thick skin because who knows what they'll tell you.
And honestly, that's true, Alton, because I remember I was with my mentor. He coaches people. He in fact went all up to her last tour. He was her connection coach, going traveling with her on her tour, telling her how to connect with the people. So he finished this event, 3 days, talking to people, over 150 people in the room. Everyone's excited, trying to get to him. Now I'm walking with him to the elevator. He gets to the elevator and he stops at the door. He looks in my eyes. He says, Mbiotidem, I listened to your first Facebook Live and it was really good. I loved it. In fact, what I loved about what you were doing was we're not just talking about, yeah, you can do it. You were giving people practical steps. Do you know what I heard at that moment, Alton? All I could hear was, yeah, he's just saying that to make me feel good. I didn't believe him. So
Awesome.
what you just said, we're sometimes we're so close to our genius, we can't even see it. So sometimes talking to other people and saying, hey, what do you see in me? You'll be amazed when people tell you what they see in you, because everyone, I don't care who you are, everyone has greatness in them. And hang around the right people, they can pull that thing out.
For sure.
I want you to talk more about that. Hang around the right people. How do you find the right people? How do you even define that?
Wow, I am hearing things. I heard white people. It's like, what?
If you want white people, you can come to the deciding factor. But I want to know about the right people.
Right.
Hey, maybe they can still come to the deciding factor.
They might
for
still
the right people. Come on.
They might still come here. That's true. Alton does have a beard, so that's lends us credibility.
I think Charlie Tremendous Drew said something. He says, 5 years from now, you're going to be the same person, except for the books you read and the people you hang around with. And so you become the average of the 5 people you hang around with. So now, how do you find those people? What do you want out of life? Now, if you want to become a trader, then you got to go hang around day traders. Where do they hang out? Find out. Do they hang out in a local church meeting? Go there. Do they hang out in a local chamber of commerce? Wherever they hang out, you've got to be in that place. For me, when I started, I didn't have anyone in my circle that was doing what I wanted to do. And one of the things I started doing, I started attending every free event in Houston. I went to every one of them. I went on Eventbrite and I looked up events and I was there. And one of the meetings, that's how I met my mentor. I was there. I saw this black guy, handsome guy, he's just nice, dressed nice. And and the room is full of people, Caucasians, African Americans, Hispanics, all kinds of people. And he just got the room moving the way he wanted them to move. And I'm like, that's my dream. I want to be like this guy. And I remember after the meeting, I went there and shook hands with him. And I said, man, that was amazing. So I bought his 2 books that he had there. And then I called his director because she gave us our number. I called and signed up for his coaching, because he had it was really discounted and my money was able to meet the really discounted rate. And I signed up for the coaching and I just began to show up in his atmosphere. In wherever he was speaking, when he got on Facebook Live, I showed up. 2 years later, I'm the guy next to him when he's having his events in Houston. I'm the guy that was the gatekeeper. Anyone that wants to talk to him, you have to come through me. But it didn't happen by accident. It was intentional. So you have to intentionally place yourself in those environments where those people are that you want them to mentor you.
So it's funny you say that, as well as list the town, because we interviewed a guy named Mike Watts, who's from Houston, Texas, that does the love handle. He actually said the same thing in his interview with us, which is putting yourself in the right situation.
Wow.
Because he went to all these events where he could learn about all these people's ideas. And he ended up developing all these cool products. I mean, as seen on TV, the Weed Whacker, right? And then he ends up developing this love handle as well. It really does speak to what you're saying, is putting yourself in all the situations that fit what you want in your life, if you know the purpose, right?
Right. Hey, just to piggyback off that, I mean, okay, I was speaking last 2 years ago. I had the opportunity to be in Texas Southern University, working with a former NFL player, to create a program for the young men in the college. It was called the King's Program. And the only way, how did I get into that? I met this guy at an event and started working out with him. And after working out, he said one day, he said, "Hey, Bassey, I'm going to be speaking at Texas Southern University at the student orientation, to freshman orientation tomorrow." I'm like, "Hey, dude, do you need someone to carry your bag?" Proud? If you need someone to carry a bag, I'm ready, because one, my desire was to get into to speak in the colleges. Someone is already doing it. They can show me the ropes. And I followed him the next day, and I'm carrying his bag, and Bassey, go to my car and get this. And I don't have any ego, because I'm working on something. And a few at the end of the meeting, I'm in the room with the director of students and the assistant director of students, and the guy standing right there and someone else, and I'm staying in the room thinking, how the heck did I get in here?
Yeah.
Because I was willing to, and that's the challenge a lot of people have. Their egos are so big, they don't want to learn. I was willing to humble myself for a moment because I had a target. So you've got to do what it takes to get in the room with the people that can change your life, because you need a mentor, you need a coach, you need somebody that can take you to your next season. And when you find that person, your life is different.
So let me ask, I'm a big Les Brown fan, and he says, you gotta be hungry, right? So I can't do Les Brown, but man, you got to listen to him because he's awesome. Tell us, how do we develop that hunger? Because I would say, Bassey, if you didn't have that hunger to go in and say, look, I'm just going to go hit up all these events. I'm assuming that throughout that time, you still had to eat and like pay for rent. And so I suspect that wasn't the only thing that you were doing. And perhaps you had to make some sacrifices for sure of your time and your effort and figuring out, no, that is not the mentor for me, but hopefully I'll find him if I keep going. So how do you encourage people, if they're not hungry, to get hungry and to nurture that?
Well, thank you for that. That's a great question. I was on my job. I came to work one day, and when I got to work one day, there was a list. And I got the list, and this was a list that came out at the end of every year. It was a list of everyone who was going to get a raise the next year. And so Alton, I looked at the list, and I looked at the first name and the second name, and I just kept going down the list. And somehow my name was not on the list. Man, I lost it. I did everything right. I took the extra shift. I worked overtime. I did whatever I had to do. I did not call out from work. And here, my name was not on the list. So I began to think of creative ways to tell off my boss so he doesn't know I'm telling him off. And so I'm looking for creative ways. I'm going to tell this guy off. And thank God I had the opportunity to cool down. Because when I finally cooled down, I realized something, that I was losing my cool for 25 cents raise.
Mm.
But you missed your other purpose in life, which was to tell us an even better story on the show of how you punched your boss in the face.
Facebook Live. Here we go.
Oh, you know what? I don't want to end up in jail. And when I calmed down, I said, man, Mbiotidem, you're losing your cool over 25 cents raise. Why don't you make yourself so valuable that you can make your own 25 cents and not have to wait on another person to determine if you get a raise or not? And that was when I made up my mind. That was my turning point. That was the time I said, you know what? I'm going to do whatever it takes. And it's funny you mentioned Les Brown, because one of the people I began to listen to, because one of the things when you want to change your life, you have to be willing to relocate your mind. And to relocate your mind, you've got to listen to a different story. and I will listen to Les Brown for hours. Life knocks you on the ground, make sure you land on your back, because if you can look up, you can.
Yes.
There's greatness in you. And I will
Yeah.
listen to that for weeks, for months. And I'll listen to people like Tony Robbins and Bob Proctor and Brian Tracy. And I'll listen to them so many times. And that began to create a hunger. Because if I spend time with anything you spend time with for a long time, you start developing affinity for it. So how do you develop that hunger? You've got to spend time listening to the right things. And all of a sudden, it doesn't happen overnight, because I won't say I changed overnight. No, it was gradual. That hunger was growing, and I began to listen and listen and listen. And over time, that hunger became strong, where I began to actually take action and do the necessary things to change my life.
Okay, so I've got a follow-up. Sorry, Alton. All of this, though, to me, it makes perfect sense if we're talking someone like you that's already motivated. I mean, you're pretty obviously already motivated. You were going to the places that were getting you to the people. I'm thinking about so many people that I'm meeting these days, and even before the whole COVID, everything shut down their jobs, they were already feeling like they were in a dead-end job and did not see that next step. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, to be in a place where I can't even see better. There's not a place to go. There's like a degree of hopelessness that I now feel like has been amplified when people have had their dead-end job pulled out from under them, right? So what do you say to someone that's there? They're not in the sphere of business yet. They're not even thinking entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are so far outside of their universe, right? What do you say to that person that is, you know, they were working fast food and then the fast food got closed down because we're all afraid of a virus, right? How do you get from that type of mindset to what you're talking about here?
So you're basically saying, how do you deal with someone who's stuck?
Yeah, stuck in like no vision of something else.
Good. So in my book, I talk about 6 reasons to get unstuck. And okay, now if you're in that situation, because that's why I was actually, I was there. There was a time, I remember my first book, I talk about that, where I was looking for ways to creatively take myself out. But the only problem I had was I grew up in church and they said you're going to go to hell. So I was like, maybe not a good idea.
I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, me too.
So if you're in that position, what do you do? First of all, become honest with yourself and say, listen, I need help. And I think the challenge a lot of people had, and that's what I had for years, I was afraid to ask for help. I was supposed to have this perfect life. I was supposed to be a guy that had it together. I was always a guy smiling. I was talking with a coworker, was it 2 weeks ago? And she says, man, you're always so happy. Yeah, I was always happy in public, but in secret, I was depressed. I was confused. I was frustrated. So how did I take my life from that person to this person? It didn't happen overnight. The first thing I had to do was what I said earlier, relocate your mind. Listen, relocating your mind doesn't mean you're going to change in one day. No, it's going to be a gradual process. So what did I start doing? I'll go on YouTube and I'll just listen. That's all you have to do. I'm not saying go do something grand tomorrow. Okay. I reached out to John, I said, I want to be on your podcast. I couldn't do that 2 years ago. No way. I'm like, nah, but what if they say no? No, I don't care if you say no. Thank you. Next.
I love it.
Wait.
No.
Without me saying yes.
No, I'm glad that you did. But what I'm saying is I'm not this person I am today. This is not who I was 2-3 years ago. 2016. I'll say this and around 2016, I got to, end of 2015, I thought, you know what, I was so frustrated because I just relocated to Houston. I was like, okay, man, I'm going to do great things. And I thought I figured it out. And life was just the same. And I was tired. And I read 3 books and I thought I figured it out. And I'm so excited. I said, my God, I got the answer. Yay. And beginning of the year, I remember getting this nice book, writing down my goals and saying, yeah, I figured it out what I need to do. by the 15th of January 2016, nothing had changed. But I was frustrated. And I remember going to a meeting. And when I got to the meeting, the speaker said something. He says, when did you first realize you were broke? And what did you say to yourself? And I'm thinking, my God, this is a good question. And people began to speak. And one lady said, when I was 18 years old, I had a baby out of wedlock and I didn't have the money to take care of the baby. And he said, what did you say to yourself? And she said it. But the one that caught my attention was the guy who was playing the keyboard. He lifted his hand and the speaker says, tell me your story. He says, when we were 12 years old, we went out with our mom and we wanted her to buy a toy and she did not have the money. He says, what did you say to yourself? He says, I told myself I will never be as broke as my mom. He says, how old are you now? He says, I'm 42 years old. He says, and what's your financial situation? He says, I'm broker than my mom was. And Alton, Barb, John, the light bulbs went off. I was told if you say that what you say is what you get. But he said it and he did not become it. What happened? And that set me on a whole course to learning. And what I discovered, it's all about mindset, and we don't have the time to go into all that today. But all I'm going to tell you is, if you are stuck right now, all I want you to do is take 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes every day, and just type in on YouTube, motivation, and just listen to it. That's all. I'm not talking, don't go anywhere, don't run anywhere, don't call anyone. Just listen to 20 minutes of motivation every day. And after 30 days, you start noticing something is shifting for you. After 60 days, you're going to start saying, you know what? I think I can do this. After 90 days, your life will not be the same. 15 minutes of motivation every morning will change your life in 3 months.
Yeah, I have to echo that, Bassey, just because I agree with what you said, but I want to offer a warning because I never knew anything about Tony Robbins, and I had done the 9-to-5 thing. And then I don't even remember how I stumbled upon it. Maybe it was like some ad or something. And I started listening to him, and it made me so miserable after listening to him, because it was at that moment when I had that breakthrough of how crappy my current life was and how much of a gap there was between what my potential really was and where I was. And I was like super mad and really mad at myself, right? Just kind of frustrated. But I think everything that you said 100%, because it exposes that potential. And then if you, and I'm going to plug our podcast here, if you make that decision to take the steps, then, I mean, that's a big first part, I think, Barb, to answer your question. When you're sitting there stuck, like, you got to at least go, I want to get unstuck. I want something to change for sure, or nothing will.
All right. So I'm going to push back. So drink your water. It's going to be fun.
Come on, John, do it.
All right. So a two-part question, right? So there's people out there who unfortunately die at a young age. Tragic deaths. It just happens. It's life. How do you tell someone around them that they still had a purpose, even though their life ended early? Or also, I'm going to add to that slightly. On page 13, you actually talk about a young man who believed everyone did not have a purpose. Tell me more about that story. And do you believe everyone really does have a purpose, even after what I just stated?
Oh, so sorry. And the first question was, if they died young, they still have a purpose?
Yeah. And how would you go about pointing out that they still had a purpose?
Well, okay. Thank you so much. The biggest thing is the fact that you have a purpose doesn't mean you live up to your purpose. So I have my iPhone right now, right? My iPhone can do a lot of things, but you know, most people only use their iPhones to call and text and go on social media, but it can do much more than that. That's a mobile office. When I was practicing trading, I was trading with my iPhone. So now, the person that's just using the iPhone to call, text, get on social media, are they using the full potential of this phone? Not really. So the fact that someone dies, I like what Miles Moron said. He says, die empty. In other words, use everything you were called, you were given, use it up. Most people sadly don't use up their potential because and that's one of the things I talk about, because they're afraid that because of the fears, the insecurities, and the doubts, they don't live up to their potential. So the fact that someone has a purpose doesn't mean they're going to live up to the purpose. And if you're not living up to your purpose, that's why we're having this talk today, to say, listen, it's all right. I talk about 4 steps when you set a goal, when you want to start living big. First is comfort. We all start out in our comfort zone. And so when we set a big goal and we're trying to get to the next level, we want to live up to our purpose, you have to get out of that purpose, that comfort zone. And when you step out of that comfort zone, the first thing that hits you, it's the fear zone. You are scared. Oh my God, I don't know. Am I doing the right thing? It's uncomfortable. It's just like when I put my hands like this, right? This was comfortable. If I try to do it this way, it feels uncomfortable. And because it feels uncomfortable, you know what happens? I'm like, oh no, I gotta go back. And that's what happens to a lot of people. So comfort, fear, and once you push through that fear, the next thing you get into is the pain of changing yourself, the pain of growing. But once you push through that pain, you actually experience growth and you hit your goal. So that's the first question. The second question, I remember I was talking to a young man. He said to me, he says, Mbiotidem, everybody doesn't have a purpose. And he didn't even know I wrote a book on I'm pursuing purpose. He just said that to me and I laughed and I said, really? I said, tell me more. I said, okay. He says, well, some people are born and they have something to do. Some other people just when they're alive, they just live their life and they die and that's it. And I said, okay, good. I like your logics. I want to ask you 3 questions. I said, number 1, what did you want to do as a child? Because if you notice something about children, they all have a shout in them. There's something about the child that they want to conquer the world. They have big dreams. It's almost quote unquote impossible dreams. Where did they get that from? And then now we as adults have to tell them, listen, that's not really possible. and we try to calm them down. So I said, what did you want to be as a child? He says, well, I wanted to study computers. I wanted to learn computers. I wanted to become a computer programmer. I said, oh, wow, interesting. I said, the second question, I says, if you had free time right now, what do you fill your time with? What kind of shows do you watch? Recently, I find myself watching shows watching shows about billionaires and millionaires. I love when they're doing those trades with companies, buying companies and saying, well, we want to buy this company. That stuff excites me.
Shark Tank, right?
What?
Shark Tank?
Yeah, Shark Tank. Oh, I love that too. So I said to him, he says, well, I just love when I'm free. I want to read books on computers. I want to study computer books. I want to play computer games. I said, okay, great. Third question, if you were going to an island, what would you want to take with you? After you have your basic amenities, food, water, and all that good stuff, clothing. He says, well, I would like to get my computer, get some computer books, get some stuff about my computer gadgets. And I says, do you notice the answers you keep giving? Because if I ask this question to someone else, their answer will be different. And he had an epiphany. Oh my God, I should spend my life working around computers.
Yeah. Great response. I don't have a rebuttal on that one.
Nice.
You're up, Barb.
So basically, there is nothing good to say, is what I'm hearing, is if somebody dies young without their purpose. Like, so sorry. Okay, here's the thing that I'm mulling around, and I'm pausing because I'm trying to figure out how to put this intelligently, like a question. And I'm failing. So what I want to know, though, is sort of the who decides. And I'm coming at this from the viewpoint of a housewife. Okay, so I have all of society looking at me and saying, yeah, she has not reached her potential because she spends her life, cooking and cleaning and teaching, kids within the home, right? And I look at my own life and feel like, yeah, Alton, you don't follow directions well. Me neither. Guess what? I don't have to. Like I look at my life and I feel like I see purpose everywhere. Like it's rife with purpose, right? But I am aware that that isn't the perspective from the outside. So I think that part of what I'm wanting to know is, who decides? Could that person that died young, having not reached their full potential, who are we to say that they hadn't reached their full potential? That wasn't as intelligent of a question as I was going for, but that's kind of what I'm wondering about. Like, how do we determine if we are living that purpose? Like, what if they are just happy as a clam working at 7-Eleven and that brings them joy? Do we say then that that was their purpose and they fulfilled it?
Well, again, that's the question, right? The problem we have many times is we're always looking outside for validation. All the validation I need is within me. You're not going to tell me if I'm living my purpose. No, I can't tell if you're living your purpose. You're the only one that can tell. Is it fulfilling you? Are you happy? Does it bring you joy? Does it excite you? I was listening to one of my mentors, Dr. D. Martini. He said someone said to Jackie Kennedy and said, "Hey, Jackie Kennedy, you're just a housewife." And she says, "No, I'm not just a housewife. I'm raising leaders and presidents."
Yeah. Right. Yeah, wasn't it? It was
sorry.
I think it was Chesterton, right? G.K. Chesterton that said the work done in the home, it's nothing less than shaping the bodies and souls of humanity. Like,
but Jackie Kennedy also said that when they asked her that question, she says, "I'm raising presidents and world leaders." That's what she was called to do. That's what brought her joy. So who am I to say, well, she's not living her purpose? No, that's what she was put on earth to do. And she did raise world leaders. So that's going back to what we talked about. Your purpose doesn't have to be sexy for it to be relevant. How do you know you're living your purpose? Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and listen to within. Listen. Your intuition will tell you. If you feel peace and joy, that's it. If you don't feel that, then it's not. Then maybe you should be doing more. So that's to answer the question.
Okay, so I've got one last question, and I think I've pretty much wrapped my mind around this whole topic. People talk about making smart decisions or smart goals. But I think you actually have a different methodology on page 72 of your book. I think you call it TAMS or TAMES.
TAMES.
Elaborate on that. What's going on with that?
Well, for years, what I heard was, smart goals, set smart goals. It has to be specific, measurable. I think accountable, and it has to be, achievable, relevant, time bound. Yeah, that was great, but it was not really working for me. And I remember one time sitting with my mentor at dinner, and he said something. He says, most people talk about smart goals, but what I teach my clients, he said that to me, was I teach them about emotional goals. Your goals have to have an emotion. And that began to get me thinking about the whole idea of goal setting, because that's another topic for another day. But everyone that's listening to us, you've got to have some kind of goals. Right here, I have something. I just saw it right now. I have a goal card. I'm so grateful and happy that I earn $1 million a year. That's a goal. I'm working towards that. Alton just raised up his goal list. So you need to have something you're shooting towards. So smart goals was not working for me. So what I did, I came up with something that was working, something I've used, and I call it TAME. So I'm showing you how to tame your goals. T is for time frame. You need to have a time frame. How much, by when? There just got to be a time frame. I talk to people who say, I've been trying to write a book. Okay. And 3 years. John, I just saw that. What does that mean?
I was gonna say, who are you elbowing here? That's
it's pointing at someone. So that's funny. But anyway, so most people, I want to write a book someday. I was talking to a lady. I said, "Man, you said last year." It was a year ago. I texted her this, I think, a few weeks ago. I said, "Last year you said you were going to write a book. What's going on?" And she said, "Well, I'm going to write the book someday." She's never going to write a book. Maybe she will 10 years from now. Who knows? But In the near future, there's no book coming. So time frame. Number 2, A stands for accountability. You've got to have an accountability component. Why I've been able to I remember writing my first book, In Pursuit of Purpose. The only reason I was able to write this book was I had accountability. And that accountability, I had an accountability partner. Every Friday, she'll call me, hey, Bassey, did you get your book? Did you write something this week? And the weeks I didn't write anything, I'll call her and say, hey, this week I'm really, really busy. I can't make the call. After skipping for 2 weeks, I'll finally say, let me get back on the call. To get back on the call, I have to do stuff. So anyway, so T is for time frame, A is for accountability, M is for your goals have to be measurable. Can a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old tell when you achieve that goal? So, okay, you saw my goal. I'm so grateful and happy now that I'm making $1 million a year. When I hit that, you can tell. Anyone can tell. So your goals has to be very clear and measurable. And then E is for emotional. You need to have an emotional component in your goals. Why is this important for you? And you say, well, how do I determine that emotional component? We will do more for other people than we will do for ourselves. For me, my why is I want to make sure I'm able to take care of my mom in her old age. I want to be able to provide for her. So that gets me excited. That gets me motivated. That gets me moving and doing what I need to do. So your goals has to be emotional. And then the S is for strategy. For years, I did not accomplish my goals. I grew up in church, and one of the things we do when we get to church at the beginning of the year, they say, write your goals down, your prayer request. And we wrote it all down, excited, prayed, anointed it with oil. And then the next year, I pulled out the paper, and none of it was accomplished. The problem was not because God did not want me to have them, or it was just I had no strategy. I had no plan. So you must have a strategy. What's your strategy to accomplish your goal? You want to write a book. Okay, you want to write a book in the next 3 months. Maybe if you write 15 minutes a day, you can accomplish your goal. So that's what the TAMES framework is. So time frame, accountability, measurable, emotional, and have a strategy.
Yeah, I love that emotional side of it. That's really good.
Y'all got any other questions to make up your decision?
I'm good.
Although I do kind of want to know, is it expensive to get your laugh as a ringtone? Because I would sort of enjoy that a little bit.
Hold on, I'll record it. Hold on.
Okay, thank you.
All right, guys.
For free.
Let's do the deciding factor.
Now it's time for our deciding factor.
Okay. Does everyone have a purpose in life? So I asked you that tough question about if someone were to pass on early. I like your response. Here's one tweak I'm going to have to that response, because me and Alton as well are of a religious background. And I would say one of the things that I was taught as a kid is you don't know what your purpose is. And sometimes your purpose is not a job. Sometimes if you pass on early, your purpose was to touch someone else's heart in a way that changed the world. There's been some people that unfortunately passed away due to some of the stuff going on in this world. And a lot has been coming of it, whether it's the Black Lives Matter movement, whether it was COVID, right? There's all sorts of things going on that could lead to bigger, better things for others. So my response is, yes, I do think everybody does have a purpose. It may not be job related, though. Your purpose could simply be to touch the right person in the right way that leads to bigger, better things.
Well, I agree with you. Again, purpose, it's clear. Your purpose is what your life, you were called to do in life. And so now, does that mean your purpose has to be grand? Absolutely not. Some people's purpose, look at someone like Bill Gates. His purpose was to help bring computers to the world. Look at Tiger Woods. His purpose is to play golf. Look at LeBron James, basketball. So everybody's going to have something different. Some people's stuff is going to be grand. Some people's is not going to be grand. But what you want to do is discover What's your heart telling you? Because your life is already demonstrating what you're called to do. Once you listen to your heart, you will discover you're called to do something. Some people, like you said, were called to lay down their lives for other people so they could start a movement. Martin Luther King gave that speech. Right? He died young, but he lived this purpose. So whatever your heart is, your heart will tell you, listen to it. And I believe everyone has that thing, that purpose in them. It doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to be amazing, sexy. It's just what you are called to do.
Okay, I think it's my turn. So I'm in half agreement. Are we allowed to have half agreement on
Your
a deciding
option C,
factor?
Barbara. You're whatever. Just make it up.
Okay, here's the thing. I agree that everybody has purpose. I disagree that we find that purpose by looking inward, because I think that the more I'm looking inward, the more skewed that picture becomes, because then I can find all of my poor motives for doing everything. I can definitely obsess over whether I think I've done enough. It feels like the more attention that I pay to myself, the less attention that I am paying to who I can be serving in my life. And it seems like whether you do that with a job or, with a calling that is, like mine, which is more in the home, then I think that the more attentive I am to my own heart, the less attentive I am to yours. And I think that our purpose is bigger than my own heart. It's bigger than my own, than looking at me. So I'm going to split answer there.
Option C. Way to go, Barb.
Yep, option C. No, it's great. I'm going to try not to be too belligerent here, but first I just wanted to thank Bassey for coming on our show today. If you're just listening, if you can't tell just on the audio, Bassey is pouring the energy into you guys. He's got us, sweat all over his forehead because he's given so much. So if y'all want us to keep bringing on awesome guests like this, you need to like and share this stuff, especially this episode. This is great to help pick people up, especially in the COVID times, just to look at things a little bit differently, just to even entertain the idea that they might have a purpose. I think it's worth sharing this episode. So do it. And my deciding factor on, do we have a purpose in life? I 100% believe that we do. My take on it is, I'm going to steal some of what Steve Harvey has said. He's really I'm a huge Steve Harvey fan. And he talks about your gifts and how your gift will make room for you. And that's something that's really resonated with me when I ask the question, what is my purpose? I migrate to the question of, what is my gift? Because I believe that my purpose is to figure out what my gift is and use it and sharpen that. And Bassey, when you ask the question, how do we know if our life matters? I mean, that really hit me, because I think that that's a great way to measure if we're using our gift. And I think that to answer that question honestly, you have to be affecting other people. So I think kind of what Barbara was alluding to is that I believe if we are using our gift and we are getting into our purpose, that certainly we will be impacting, I think you said 1 million people, right? Or millions, or sorry for the misquote. And then for all the people who were sitting there thinking that they're just lamos, probably people who are listening to us are not lamos, but if there's one out there, I want to read you this Helen Keller quote. She said, if you're not familiar with Helen Keller, she was blind, deaf, and essentially mute for a lot of her life until she figured out how to speak. And she said, the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. And so I just want to challenge everyone who's listening to believe that message, that you need to have that vision. You need to be thinking that you do have a purpose and that you do have a gift. I believe you have a gift, and that I want to challenge you to think of it, figure it out, ask your buddies what it is if you don't know, and get to work, because the world needs you.
Oh man, I've got to tell you, Bassey, we've had a lot of guests on here that talk about business. They talk about the upper levels, CEOs and all that. The best thing on having you on the show is the fact that you are talking to everyone. I mean, just everyone. And that's what we need. We need somebody for everyone. Now, you are a life coach. You help everyone. How can someone, number one, get your books? But number two, what if they need your help? How can they get in touch with you?
Well, one of the quick ways to get in touch with me, you can just go on my social media. It's in my first name, Mbiotidem Bassey on Facebook. At Instagram, it's Mbiotidem. LinkedIn is Mbiotidem.Bassey. Reach out to me on those social media platforms. You can just leave me a quick inbox message. Say you listen to this podcast, and I'll reach out to you. We can schedule a time where you can get a free 20-minute consultation call with me. But also, if you want to get the book, it's enteringthezoneofsuccess.com. Again, enteringthezoneofsuccess.com. You can get an autographed copy. But if you want an ebook version, you can go on Amazon. It's 99 cents. I made it as cheap as possible so that everyone can have access to it. But can I say something? Sorry? Yeah, a dollar.
We talk about goals.
Because I want to help people. But can I piggyback what Barbara said? And Barbara, I think the big thing about purpose is whatever your purpose is, it's always going to be outward. It serves the world. Your gift is not for you. It doesn't matter how great your gift. Think of a pianist, someone who plays a keyboard. Yeah, they may be good. But what's the purpose of spending all the hours in practice? It's to bless the world. So when we say look inwards, we're talking about look inward to find that thing, that unique thing that you were called to do. And then when you find it, now you can go and bless the world with your personality and your gifts, like Alton said.
Wow. Well, I'm going to do you one better. If you're watching this on YouTube, down in the description, we will have the links there. Also on the podcast, I'll put on the links. And then, of course, we'll even have it on social media. So there's no reason you can't get on and go spend $1 to read this guy's books. Do it now. Don't wait. Do it. I mean, $1. I was going to ask you for a free book, but I can't even do that now because anyhow.
Buck, I think it's a pretty good investment in yourself.
It is. And my books are how-to manuals. And the reason I write them that way was because these are the questions I had. I had questions. For example, I wrote a whole book, In Pursuit of Purpose. I didn't understand what purpose is. So I talk about this in this book. And then most people that read this book were like, oh my God, it's really good, but what do I do? And then I wrote Entering the Zone of Success. So what's that zone? That zone of success is where you practice certain habits and skill sets, and now success catches up with you, because success, like Jim Rohn said, is looking for an attractive place to dwell. So there's certain things you can do to position yourself for success to catch up with you.
Yes.
All right, Bassey, you keep that smile going, man. Pass it on. Guys, that's going to do us for the show. I appreciate everybody's time and listening and being on this show. Guys, say goodbye.
Bye. Thanks,
Everyone.
This has been another episode of The Deciding Factor, giving you food for thought on real life issues. Be sure to click, like, and subscribe to this podcast, as well as all your big social media outlets, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Don't forget to check out our website at thedecidingfactorpodcast.com and give us comments and feedback. Until next time, stay safe and remember to keep an open mind.